once again with the amazing independent journalist, activist, and instigator, or a major instigator of the DNC fraud lawsuit, Niko House, who has just launched his own social media platform, which is called Just Inform. Previous panelist Tim Black and myself both post there, and I'm so grateful for all of the work that Niko has done in addition to coming on this Vigil and supporting Julian Assange and WikiLeaks. Thank you, Niko, for joining us.
Well, thank you for such a glowing introduction, and I appreciate all the work that you do, all the work that you've done on Just Inform, and the stuff that you're doing just obedient media, and even doing this. I know it depends on what side of the fence you're on. For me, I feel like doing videos is pretty easy because I retain information. I can regurgitate it pretty quickly, but for you, I know that this is like not your forte. So for you to take the time out and do this for hours and hours and hours, it's pretty emblematic of how dedicated you are to finding justice for Julian and for elevating the voices who also want to find justice for him. So thank you, Liz.
Oh, not a problem, and I appreciate that. And as I said earlier in one of our technical breaks, what inspires me so much is not only what Julian Assange has put himself through over the last 7, going on, will be 8 years of just being in the embassy and being persecuted in that way, but also the fact that, the amazing supporters on the ground in front of the embassy who have done 8-hour-day vigils in front of the embassy day after day after day. So to me, hosting a vigil like this is nothing. It's a drop in the bucket compared to the suffering of Julian Assange, and also compared with some of the efforts that others have made. But getting back to the current vigil, I was wondering what you make of kind of the developments that we've seen since I last spoke with you on the previous Unity 4J online vigil.
So I'm assuming you're referring to the fact that it's been alleged that James Comey actually stood in the way of Julian Assange's immunity. And
yes, definitely.
Unfortunately, that seems to be par for the course, right? It's crazy to me how, and this is very similar to what happened when we saw Kim.com literally say, I tried to call them and give them all the information they could possibly need to solve the Russian narrative, and yet they ignored me. And now you had an opportunity for Julian Assange to say, you know what, whatever the deal may have been, it would have definitely been a step further to finding the answer that they need to solve whatever issue they needed to. And they just totally write that off. For what? So they can,
exactly.
And it's honestly a clear attempt, in my opinion, to crush WikiLeaks with the final blow, because they know that which I don't think they understand how smart Julian is. He was years ahead of them, clearly. Or how do you drop? He's in the embassy. He's dropping elections worth of information. He's in the embassy. So, but they know that if Julian passes, and especially in this fashion, it would either do one of two things. I hope that it would galvanize people and make whistleblowers and those who support them kind of band together even stronger. But their hope is probably that it would discourage anyone from ever creating another WikiLeaks again, which I hope that won't be the case, but I'm sure that's what they want.
Absolutely. And in addition to the story published by The Hill, interestingly enough, it was an investigative journalist, and not only that, but they published it in the opinion section, oddly enough, so even, and I guess The Hill is sort of a conservative leaning mainstream outlet.
I didn't know that, because during the election, you wouldn't be able to tell.
Exactly. But even it's interesting because even they buffer themselves against sort of what you would think would be a backlash by putting it into the opinion section. So, compared with the lengths WikiLeaks goes to provide us unfiltered truth, it just shows the cowardice of legacy press outlets on so many levels. But I was wondering as well,
that he actually published this I can't believe they actually allowed him to publish it. And I'm sure that he, to his credit, I'm sure he still got backlash from The Hill, because they're very protective. They even took away people's rights to self-publish a lot on The Hill. I know, because HA used to self-publish on there, Tim Black used to, and they took theirs away. So just
interesting. No, that's added information. I wasn't aware of that. That's concerning. But I was wondering, as well as, you know, the situation with the Hill and the story about Comey, what you kind of think about the, you know, increasing relationship between Ecuador and the United States. You know, we saw Vice President Pence visit Ecuador recently in the time since the last vigil. And we've also seen, you know, basically arrest orders issued against previous Ecuadorian President Rafael Correa. You know, it's not looking good right now, but I was just wondering what you think about all this. Any thoughts you have on it?
I would probably be, I guess, if it wasn't Pence going, I'd be like, okay, this may be a positive step in the right direction. But because it's Pence, I was kind of worried about it, you know, because we know that that Pence isn't playing for our team. Neither is Jeff Sessions. I'm not really a huge fan of Trump, but I can say with pretty much 100% or at least 80% certainty that he is not what the deep state had in mind. He has interrupted a lot. And I know that at one point he said that he would work to see if he could help Julian Assange out. But Pence in that administration, for the most part, is not on his team, except for the new people that he brought in. I mean, just a quick example. Notice whenever the North Korea deal came, and then everybody's like, yeah, deep state isn't going to allow this. And then, of course, you know, 5 random secret agents, intelligence guys who nobody's ever heard of, nobody knows their name, and NBC once again releases the initial article. You know, the CIA didn't comment on this time. And that's kind of a weird thing, right? Because we know during the election, CIA was, my turn. But who's in charge of the CIA? Who appointed the head of the CIA? Trump did. Yeah,
so absolutely.
With this, definitely. I would be less, like I said, I'd be less concerned if it was Trump going, but because it's Pence going, it almost makes me wonder if they're working. I don't trust Pence to work on behalf of Trump.
Interesting point. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know that a lot of people have kind of expressed similar doubts about, you know, the president himself versus his close circle of advisors. But I wonder as well, you know, when we see this aggression towards Julian Assange escalating so much, and yet we have a president now, Trump, who had campaigned in part saying he loved WikiLeaks. What does it tell you? And I'm bringing that up not as a left-right issue, but simply in a way to say, when we have a president who campaigns on that in part, and then their administration does a complete backflip, what does that tell us, in your opinion, about this you know, unelected power structure that continues no matter who is elected? And that's why it's not a left-right issue. It's literally, you know, doesn't seem to matter who is actually elected.
Yeah, and the reason why I say, I would say that this is actually very similar to what I believe happened to Obama. I feel like Obama had good intentions in the beginning. I think he got totally blindsided by the system. He was played. You know, I think there was obviously a little bit of ego and hubris involved, but overall, I think that he you know, it just takes Hillary's person to say, well, just appoint this guy, I trust him. Just appoint this guy, I trust him. Let's appoint this guy, I trust him. Next thing you know, you're surrounded by Bill Clinton's entire administration and even some of Bush's. And so we saw that happen with Trump, right? Pence was probably like, I suggest this guy. You can trust him. You can trust that person. You can trust this person. And then look what happens. He's having to fight back and forth on whether or not to pull troops out of Syria, and he's the commander-in-chief. So, like, it's the same situation. Trump literally cited WikiLeaks as reasons why Hillary Clinton should not be elected. He boasted about them. He was happy to talk about them during the election, even talking about them after the election. And unfortunately, we see Pence go and speak with the Ecuadorian president. Now, I don't even know if Pence was even authorized to go. And I think that we can say that he was, but would we know if he wasn't? Would they want to make it look like the administration is splintered? Like they did during that Syria thing. The difference with the Syria issue was that they were trying to make Trump look foolish for wanting to pull out troops. It's the same thing with the North Korea issue. So if Pence was doing something that wasn't necessarily on par with what the campaign or what the administration wants, would they report it? Probably not.
That's a very interesting point, and I think that's one that I hadn't considered. So that's a new perspective on that. I think as well that it's just disappointing not only to see Trump himself sort of backflip on his, assessment of WikiLeaks, but also his top advisors. So we have, for example, former CIA director Mike Pompeo, who made very, very aggressive statements towards WikiLeaks and called them a hostile intelligence service, compared them directly with Al Qaeda, and so that's a step up in aggression, not a step down. So I didn't know if you had any thoughts on that.
Well, it's what I expect. Like I said, they play for the same team. You know, my motto, when it comes to the D and the R, it doesn't matter what sign it is to the establishment, as long as that it's all about the dollar sign. That's it. That's all it is for them. And when you have those CIA guys and those FBI guys, they're worried about contracts. Those defense contracts are retirement dollars for them. And they don't want to be, they know the truth of the matter is, they know that Julian Assange is very much so, not on anybody's team but the truth, right? The Republicans are still feeling what happened to the Bush administration. Some of those people never were able to hold offices that they were expecting to hold, never able to take up defense positions that they were expecting to take up, and hell, even with this Comey situation and the Andrew McCabe, like just things started rolling downhill just because of the catalyst that is WikiLeaks. And no establishment official wants to deal with that ever again. But what they don't understand is, I think that it's too late. I think that it started something that was so uncontrollable because of the information age, right? Because this is the first time that WikiLeaks released something this huge, when the one candidate who was promised to win office, who we assumed would win office, we assumed she was going to beat Obama. Nobody even expected that, right? So we thought that it was a done deal. Then on top of that, we had this quote unquote monster from, that's what the left called him anyway, the monster that is Donald Trump, the boogeyman, that the Pied Piper candidate, as they put it in the Podesta leaks, in Trump, come on. And so people are paying even more attention. And then Gucci for 2.0, the PSYOP that I like to, that's why I like to call him PSYOP. I don't believe it was real. It was real in the sense that the emails were mostly real, but it was orchestrated to confuse people and to blame people. So then you have that happen. So now everybody is hyper engaged, and then masterfully, Julian Assange drops WikiLeaks when literally everybody in the world is paying attention, to the point where CNN and all these, they were trying, they didn't even know how to handle it. They were like, oh, we have everything under control, right? Because of the Gucci for leaks. And then they were like, oh, snaps, this man just dropped way more information than we thought he had. And the information was truthful. It wasn't only about, it was, from my understanding, most of the information wasn't really, the elections were like, eh. The fact that she opens like, yeah, we're giving money to Qatar. We're giving money to Jordan. We're giving money to Saudi Arabia to do X, Y, and Z. And so, and we know that they support terrorism. She says these words in the same email. And we're like, exactly. Oh, wow, this is going to be the person that, is going to be running the country. Like, she was doing this as Secretary of State. So imagine what she's going to do when she doesn't really have to answer to anybody. And that's really, in my opinion, what made the WikiLeaks so impactful. And also, like I said, makes Julian himself such a genius, because, ain't nothing more important than delivery, right? No matter what you're doing. If he delivers it too early, not enough people pay attention. If he delivers it too late, it's too late to even care, start a process of doing something about it. But when you deliver in that sweet spot, right when she thought it was locked up, when she beat Bernie Sanders, that was it. And so he was the catalyst to something that I don't think they can change. They feel like if they have something tangible to latch on to, somebody tangible to punish, whether officially or unofficially, then they can deter people from doing what Julian did, or make sure that Julian himself can't do it in the future. But it's too late. People know your weak spots. They know that there are whistleblowers who will put their lives on the line to do this. The intelligence community, it's already been claimed and reported over and over. The intelligence community is fighting within itself. We now know that there was a Clinton investigation the entire time. So it's not like, and Julian didn't even leak that we were saying this like, yo, there's investigations on the Clintons because reports were leaking. They were denying it. right? We were right-wing conspiracy theorists. We're like, well, if there isn't an investigation, there should be, first of all. Second of all, but now we know that there was the entire time, and we found out that the Department of Justice was freaking hindering it. Like, they said that in February. They said in the February report when the Hill released that there was a Clinton Foundation investigation. And now we come to find out because of the IG report that James Comey came out and Yates came out and said, oh, we don't want it to interfere with the election. Like, really, bruh? We don't want to fact. This woman she was supposed to shut the foundation down when she ran against Obama the first time. And it never happened.
Exactly. Well, and I think building on this point that you've made, which is really perceptive, I think that what WikiLeaks has done in such a unique way is not only, as previous guests have said, revolutionize journalism, democratize the media, etc., but they've also revealed the bipartisanship of corruption. And because we have the James Comeys, but then we have the Mike Pompeos going out aggressively against WikiLeaks. These are from both sides of the aisle. And it's not limited to one side or the other as far as who then retaliates and goes after WikiLeaks.
Absolutely.
So even
I would even say that there is something to be said about both sides of the aisle in the political world, but also both sides of the aisle in the journalism world, because people align themselves with the person that agrees with them the most, because it's easier, right? It's easier to use these exact same conservative talking points or these exact same liberal talking points and never actually question the validity of like, where did that thought even come from? Like, the idea of the Second Amendment, I'm all for the Second Amendment, but not as it currently exists. Our Second Amendment was given to us because each individual state was actually supposed to have a militia. What we call our National Guard was supposed to be a state militia. And everybody was supposed to have a weapon, because if you had to defend yourself against the actual government or another state, then you'd be able to do so, or a different country, you'd be able to do so. I can't beat up a drone right now. I don't think that my house is bomb-proof. So like things like that, like nobody ever questions why these talking points are being used. Why is immigration being discussed? And why do we keep hearing ICE, 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 ICE? Both from both the left and the right. Why isn't anybody talking about military-industrial complex?
Exactly. No, I completely agree. And I think that what you're speaking to, as far as these separated echo chambers that see the kind of opposite side of the coin on one issue that is pushed like that, I think that that speaks to the whole impetus behind this vigil, where we are bringing together people from all over the narrative so that we breach those echo chambers. And that kind of impetus for the vigil reflects directly on the fact that, as you've said, WikiLeaks is publishing information that is not only relevant to everyone, no matter what side you're on, but it has been inconvenient to both sides, whether it's the George Bushes of the world or the Hillary Clintons, or just the disastrous treatment of various countries around the world. Yeah. And as a previous guest said, they also influence majorly other countries outside the US. So I think that the vigil and our participation in this from differing viewpoints is so critical.
It's so important. Yeah, it reminds people that, hey, believe it or not, we're on the same side. Even people like myself, or maybe a journalist from the right, sometimes we have to kind of get recalibrated because we get driven into those corners at times, depending on what the issue is. I have Lee Stranahan coming on tomorrow at 8 p.m. If you don't know Lee's from Fault Lines. He's conservative. He's Republican. As far as policy, we may disagree on almost everything, but as far as the ultimate goal, we agree on everything. But we do know that no matter what we agree or disagree on policy-wise, doesn't freaking matter until we get a choice at who is running anything and everything in this country. Notice, okay, so the Benghazi incident, for example, we're not going to go left or right, but we're going to say who was the only person that could even indict Hillary Clinton. Well, it was the DOJ at the time, so between Holder and Loretta Lynch. Should have been between both of them. Was that going to happen? No, they were in the same party. For the email scandal while she was there, who was the only person that could indict her? Once again, it was Loretta Lynch. Then now we know one of her friends were literally in charge of the investigation. They've worked together for decades. In New York, they were working together. So then we figure out, okay, CrowdStrike, who's in charge of CrowdStrike? Oh, wow, somebody who used to work directly above James Comey, and then, okay, well, who's Mueller? Yeah, he used to work right above James Comey before James Comey. It's like, well, who are allowing these people to just appoint who the hell they want to? What is it's you're a representative, and I don't know if you know about the case Laverne versus U.S. House of Representatives, where it says we're supposed to have X amount of House of Representatives based on the population. Right now, we're supposed to have like upwards of 6,000 representatives. Do you know how impossible it would be to corrupt the system that has 6,000 House of Representatives and like 6,000 Congress people?
Or just add term limits. There are so many ways in
that's
which
another way.
Yeah,
exactly. And so my point is, though, is that whether you're on the left or whether you're on the right, we have to start taking control of our infrastructure again. And that is something that we can all unify on. So if we have a conversation about ICE, how about we start talking about the cause, right? So let's talk, if we're going to say ICE is doing his job, is not doing it. That's if you say they did caught one person, they did their job. If I said they arrested falsely 6 people, that means they didn't do their job. We can argue semantics all day, but let's figure out why the need was all of a sudden necessary in 2003 after we went on literally one of the biggest military-industrial complex campaigns, not only in the Middle East, because that's what people focused on, but also in South America.
Exactly. And it's WikiLeaks that provides us the information that we can use in that way to go beyond those superficial media narratives to actually talk about exactly that, the causes for this instability, etc. And I think it's a really fantastic point you made about the fact that, the people from the left and the right have to come together to discuss these important issues in an honest way, because what ultimately somebody like you and Lee Stranahan share that is beyond political differences is that you value truth before ideology. You can discuss factual talking points, even if you do disagree on the interpretation of what should happen from those points. And that's, I think, what is shared by every panelist and host here, is that we appreciate the truth before our own ideology. And that's what WikiLeaks is. That is what WikiLeaks distills, is the pure primary evidence that we can then use to report accurately.
I mean, when you're troubled to the extent, I think so. Even the recent election of Alexandria Ocasio, everybody has 150 different feelings about it. And I think, once again, that is emblematic of just how much the establishment, if you have potential, even potential to hurt them, stories come out from both sides, right? From the right, she is a Stalinist in their eyes, from the establishment, from the Ben Shapiros of the world. From the left, it's either she's the greatest thing in the world, or if you're the establishment, she's not that big of a deal. What are you talking about? I don't get it. And it's like, okay, that's kind of weird that we have these huge divergent opinions about one person from one tiny district. But that lets you know one thing, that you should be asking, okay, so why are these people going out of their way to force an opinion down your throat? And it's because she is a problem for either the left or the right, and everyone, and for the establishment sides of both. And so because of that, we end up mixing narratives, right? We mix narratives with our experiences and our feelings that we have wrapped up in either party from the past. A lot of people hate Democrats no matter what, because they're just that pissed at them. And I can't say I blame them. There are people who understand that as far as the establishment Republican side goes, I don't think there's a single establishment Republican I can trust, to be honest with you, because they're all warmongers and con artists. And so that's another example of how it's like these establishment narratives just converge on each other, and people think that they're like thinking for themselves, but once again, it's really the establishment kind of dictating your narrative based off of your past experiences. Just muddying the water. What did the guy from the CIA say? He said, we'll know the job is complete once they don't believe anything that they read or see. So
yeah, that's a hugely important quote that I know a lot of people that are watching will be familiar with. But it really does speak to what we've seen in the modern era, when it's, the people that are calling independent journalists fake news are the fake news, and just the way that all of reality seems so upside down when it comes, is reflected by establishment media. What do you think the role of the independent media is when it comes to amplifying the value of WikiLeaks and in trying to defend Julian Assange?
I think that, any time that I've seen a negative article or negative comment about Julian Assange, I'm like on the attack. It's very, very rarely I'm on the attack. I can be on the defensive sometimes. I'm very diplomatic in my approach. When it comes to Julian Assange, I get infuriated once they're like, oh, he's a traitor. He's this. I'm like, he literally just became a traitor, 6 months ago? Or well, I guess at this point, a year ago? Y'all loved him. Literally loved him. I remember the praises. Julian Assange is a hero. What he did, what Chelsea made, her sacrifice. And now it's like, whenever they try to skirt that little Chelsea Manning situation, because nobody were like, hold up, what was Chelsea Manning in there for? For WikiLeaks, the one we releasing her. I thought he worked for Russia. What happened?
Exactly.
It's this. I get infuriated because you all claim you want. It's already bad enough. People are just lazy, right? They want other people to do the work for them. So now when the guy goes out of the way to show you, okay, look, this was BS. This was BS. And the people that we're supposedly supposed to be going to war with, the people we're supposed to be fighting, we're funding. The one who's supposed to be on our side, the one who claimed that guy over there, Russia, was actually the entire time working with the Russian oligarchs that they're trying to accuse Trump of working with. Like the situation in Ukraine where Obama played us for fools about the entire Ukrainian scandal, and that Russia was trying to it didn't make any sense, right? Putin is not a very reactionary person. And he doesn't do anything for no reason. You can say what you want about him, but he's extremely intelligent. He's smarter than Hillary. If he did cheat an election, at least he knows how to win it. But he's not a reactionary person. And then so when we found out what we found out about Ukraine, if you don't know, go look it up. Essentially, Ukrainian oligarchs were working with our oligarchs and EU oligarchs to keep Russia out by inviting China into their economic little infrastructure that they have apparatus. So, but Obama played us. He wasn't honest about the economics. It was the boogeyman Russia once again. And so now as we're seeing the situation unfold with Iran, we're seeing the situation unfold with obviously Syria. We know what happened with Iraq. We know what happened in Libya. We're seeing all these situations unfold, and you got to wonder okay, so what is one of the unifying themes? It's one, WikiLeaks has exposed almost all of it in some way, form, or fashion, not only from our perspective, but also over in Europe. And then two, Russia is also connected in literally since the 1800s, since the late 1800s, whenever Great Britain started establishing some of the strongholds like in Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Yemen, and even Israel and Palestine. Russia borders these countries. I don't know if y'all know that. Iran used to be our number one ally, literally. We gave them weapons for oil pretty much. That was the deal. We took out Mossadegh because he was the first democratically elected president of Iran. He wanted to nationalize the oil. That we were like, wait a minute, can't do that. We need that. And Russia eventually had to come to their defense once again because we were trying to monopolize the area. So it comes down to you have the truth and then you have the scapegoats. And when you have someone telling the truth, unfortunately, they're always going to be put with as it made the scapegoat, and they're always going to be paired with the boogeyman, just like he was paired with Donald Trump, right? He's working for Trump. And then it was Jill Stein also is working for Russia and maybe Trump. And then Bernie Sanders too. And it's like, hold up, it's not making any sense anymore. And then
Absolutely.
It does make sense. They're lying. That's what it does make sense. It makes perfect sense. They're full of shit. So
Definitely. No, I think that's a fantastic point. And I think that, when it comes to all of these situations of corruption, WikiLeaks is the only reason that we know, as you said, a lot of the background and the actual true record. Without them, we would be practically journalistically in the dark ages. So I was wondering, because I know that you were an instigator of the DNC fraud lawsuit in a major way. Can you describe what it was like, just coming out of the Democratic primary? And I'm not bringing this up to be partisan, but the way that WikiLeaks impacted the record, like the historical record, as far as what had taken place in that primary. How did that impact you personally?
Well, it was really vindicating. So there was that.
Yeah.
Because I was kind of working, from it's a lot of physical proof on my behalf, but hearsay and being able and connecting the dots. And to be honest with you, it kind of made you appreciate, from my perspective, made me appreciate Assange even more and appreciate how important these whistleblowers are, and also how important it is. I'm one of those people who I don't want Assange to leak anybody's name, because I know when that anonymity and the confidence of that, which I have never breached with any of the people who came to me, unless they allowed me to. That was the only reason that we have the DNC fraud lawsuit today. And so for me, it was vindicating because it proved everything was true. It proved how much they were it was really not even about Bernie winning or not winning. It was about making sure that Hillary was able to fulfill her promise to every single donor of that Clinton Foundation, to fulfill the promises that Bill Clinton made to those Ukrainian oligarchs, that he made to the Russia oligarchs, that Podesta, making sure that Podesta could continue to grow his wealth in that energy company, and all of these things would get swept under the rug, right? Supreme Court justices would be placed by Clinton, who is not the person we want. I mean, I know the Supreme Court looks weird right now, people. It does not look good. But think about it. This is how much control you don't have under your system in its current state. Justice Kennedy just stepped down on y'all Democrats. Think about that. He, as a Democrat, knowing what is at stake, stepped down. It's almost as if he was asked to step down so that we would be so scared at the perspective of another 60 years of conservative Supreme Court justices that we will vote for whoever. So at the end of the day, you just kind of have to remember that, it's when you have a truth teller like Julian Assange, when you have whistleblowers that are willing to come to a truth teller like Julian Assange, you can't attack. Not only can you not attack them, you need to appreciate them, because the conversation that we have on Twitter right now, they don't exist without Julian Assange, on Facebook, whatever. The careers that were born because they were just so impassioned by the truth that Julian Assange allowed us to see. We owe our careers to him in a lot of ways. And so, like I said, you cannot only just kind of be apathetic. You need to be involved. You see someone attacking Julian Assange, you need to set the record straight, because you don't know who's watching. You don't know who's reading. If you let that slide, then other people will say, oh, well, clearly they're right about Assange.
Absolutely. That's one of the main points that I've tried to drive home as well during the multiple vigils that we've had, is that, everyone in independent media who, reports truthfully about the issues that matter is indebted to the sacrifice of Julian Assange and everyone that works at their own risk at WikiLeaks, because they produce the primary source material that we draw on to report. And so all of us are massively indebted, as you said.
Oh, no, apparently, according to what I've read less recently, Julian Assange is the only person who's ever worked at WikiLeaks. So that's...
Oh, of course. I was hold on,
are we really having arguments about whether or not Julian Assange was smart enough to hire people?
Incredible. Yeah, the way that they try to distort the historical record in that sense is ridiculous. And I think one of the things you were mentioning earlier about kind of the history of these regime changes and the way that in which we've been lied to about them reminded me of a parallel that I wrote about recently, which was between the extradition attempts against Pinochet versus Julian Assange. And I wanted to mention that because basically what happened was the United States helped to destabilize a democratically elected but leftist government in order so that a right-wing government could come in and take over. And long story short, many human rights atrocities later, this person was, attempted to be, basically Spanish authorities attempted to extradite this humanitarian rights abuser. And that humanitarian rights abuser was then let off for health reasons. But now we see a journalist in Julian Assange who the US would like to extradite, who has grave health issues and is not given any clemency.
And we're still trying to figure out for what they're trying to extradite him for. We still don't know why. He didn't. He didn't do anything but press, okay, upload. Good God.
Yeah.
It makes me scared every time. I'm not even joking. I get anxiety now when I'm about to upload a video, because I'm like, are they going to come after me after I press this upload button? Because I know that just reporting the facts right now is, I guess, kind of illegal, maybe. as long as you piss the wrong person
Well,
off?
it's not illegal, but it will sometimes, depending on what the information is, gain some repercussions that might not be pleasant. But
Yeah.
at least at this point, it's not.
There had to be a reason for extradition. Like an
Yeah.
accusation that doesn't get subsequently proven false by every major entity in the, in the Western world. But, Great Britain and the United States are apparently in their own world, as we know. So,
well, what people believe is that there is a secret, like indictment against Assange, like a secret FISA, process happening against him, so that if he stepped out of the embassy, the UK would arrest him and then extradite him to the US.
Yeah, I've read literally both. I bet both sides. Like, other thing, he's like, oh no, he's on the way to being free, and other people are like, nah, he's pretty screwed, unfortunately. I really hope it's the former. I really do. I really hope that, Trump is, listen, I will say, even though it gets on my damn nerves sometimes, listen, people, he literally was saying, come on, Kim Jong, you ain't got no nukes. I got more nukes than you do. We gonna kill each other. Oh, by the way, can we be best friends now? Is that cool? Like, Trump is a pretty unpredictable guy, and in my personal opinion, because I know I've done it personally, being that unpredictable and saying you're gonna do the total opposite is exactly how to throw the establishment off of your scent.
Very true.
And I think that that's one of the positive takeaways we can get from looking at Trump's personal history as president, which is every time we think that he's going to do something like outlandish or not keep a certain promise or two, he kind of surprises us at times. So he didn't get, unfortunately, now this ICE thing is kind of crazy. It's getting kind of out of hand, but he didn't get rid of DACA. People thought that he was going to, and he didn't. He actually kept it and made sure it was in some recent legislation that got passed, but it never made news. Why? Because it's kind of inconvenient of a narrative. But he made a big deal about it, did he not?
Absolutely. And I think, I hope that our audience also will pressure the president, no matter what side of the political aisle Absolutely. You're on, to be unpredictable, to be anti-establishment, Absolutely. Specifically in his treatment of Julian Assange and WikiLeaks, because that's literally one of the things that got him elected, was his treatment and attitude towards Julian Assange. And so, I think that in a lot of ways, even supporters of Trump on the right side of the political spectrum have been really disappointed in the way that Trump has sort of bowed his head and gone basically along with the establishment's, their policy, and allowed them to set his policy. But I wanted to ask as well, I know that, you and I both are in the independent journalism sort of sphere, but how do you think that the audience and the viewers and listeners can themselves be empowered most effectively to help Julian Assange and WikiLeaks at this time? If they don't have a large social media following, what can they do to help?
If you don't have it's easy. The one way we get everything else done in this country in 2018, throw a tweet at Trump, literally every single day. You think he doesn't read them, but we know he does. It's weird how confidently I can say that. I never thought I would see another president be obsessed with what people thought about him on Twitter specifically, but we're in that era and he's reading these things. And I think that had a little to do with what happened with the North Korea deal. I think they pushed him to such a degree where they're like, you're going to start World War III and we know it. Oh, really? Now I'm going to be his best friend just because y'all said I was going to do it. And so if people start critiquing him, if people start coming at him saying, you said this, tag him in his quotes, tag him in his videos where he's praising WikiLeaks, where you said you pretty much said you owe your presidency to this man. Everything that you've been able to do that you feel like has had a positive impact on America, if it's on feels like, you were only able to do it because Julian Assange revealed the information that he did. So honor your end of the bargain, make good with Assange. And if you want to get reelected, that would be the way to do it, because I would probably leave him alone for at least that, because that would be something we would have to see through, right? It wouldn't be like he wakes up one day and we got to make sure that not only he gets clemency, but pretty much everybody surrounding the issue, because the deal, to my knowledge, was he was supposed to even testify against some other people. So like, we want to make sure that whistleblowers are protected as well, because Julian Assange is just the most high profile one. But trust me, when you're not high profile, you think Julian Assange has it bad. It gets worse. It gets worse.
Absolutely. And as previous guests have mentioned, WikiLeaks has been so unique in its support of whistleblowers, not just in terms of protecting their identity, but also advocating for them when they have received backlash and persecution from the United States kind of military interests. And I think that if we were to lose WikiLeaks, or if Julian Assange were unable to lead WikiLeaks in the future, it would be such a loss, not only in terms of the work that they have done, but in terms of the protection they provide to their sources. And as you were saying about, being anxious when you click the upload button, I imagine it would be, magnified 1,000,000 times for somebody who is considering whistleblowing. And without WikiLeaks, those whistleblowers might just not come forward because there wouldn't be a safe outlet to turn to.
Yeah,
I didn't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Well, I mean, I said there's clearly a reason that people like Julian knew that he had the information that he had on Hillary, as he reported, or what was 2014 that he said he had, or 2013. So he knew. And what's crazy about that is like that there were people before this election even was in our thoughts. Like, we never even knew that Bernie's going to run in 2013, 2014. But people feel so confident in two things. One, WikiLeaks gets results, and not in really any official or unofficial way. Some people may have thought, well, if they got results, why didn't Bernie Sanders win? No, we got Donald Trump, who totally just has disrupted everything, literally everything, like internationally and domestically. So what that shows us is that WikiLeaks, their importance and and Julian's personal conviction to the truth really usurps all, right? No matter what. The results that Julian Assange gets may not be the results that you were expecting, but they are important nonetheless. Some people consider it backlash. Some people consider it victory, right? In Trump's case, he would consider it victory. He literally probably kisses a picture of Julian Assange every night before he goes to sleep. So, but like I said, more than anything else, I really want Trump to keep up with his end of the bargain. No matter, like I said, I have differences with him, differences with the right in general, but I do truly believe that Trump is an outsider in most ways. And if he wanted to prove that he is with us, even though we disagree, like I said, if he wants to prove that he is with us, very much how he put pressure on Horowitz to release the IG report, very much so like he put pressure on Sessions to start investigating into the FBI and Andrew McCabe and all these people, very much like he's been putting pressure on all these individuals. He needs to be putting pressure on whoever is responsible. I feel like he could just, the problem is, I don't think Assange has actually been charged with anything, so I don't even know.
Not publicly. Not publicly.
Not publicly. Now, if there is something behind the scenes.
Yeah, that's where the secret FISA warrants come in and all of that. But basically, I think that what you're saying, and I think what this leads to, is a situation where if we go forward 5 or 10 years into the next presidency and the next, I think unavoidably the population in the United States and globally watching the politics in the United States will realize en masse, after, we saw hope and change become more of the same, and after we see Trump go the establishment route as opposed to the outsider route that you're describing, that every single president, no matter what side they're on, no matter what they say before being elected, they all follow the same policy. So clearly the establishment and the unelected power structure are the one driving that narrative.
Except for that guy who got assassinated.
But my question leading from that is that at what point do you think both sides politically realize that it does not matter which partisan side gets in? The problem is the establishment that remains. And how do we move forward addressing that when people realize it?
I don't know if it'll be 2020, because I think that if Trump runs again, unless Bernie Sanders somehow manages to get past that corrupt primary, I think it's going to be Trump. So I don't know if it'll be there, because there are some people who are just ridiculously loyal to that man, right? it's scary. Like the amount of loyalty that the Bernie supporters, no matter what he says, they have that type of loyalty to him. So it won't be that, because no matter what people say, it's all about MAGA. It's all about, no, it's like you idolize him above everything else. You were blinded by the love for him. So I think it will be 2024 when we have a quote unquote fresh start. And if we saw one of the establishment get in beyond, past whatever progressive candidate or, even outsider candidate for the Republicans, because there are a couple that could win. If one of the establishment gets in, we know for a fact that everybody is tired of the establishment. We know information, like you have to have the freshest candidate you could possibly come up with. And they have to be like, I mean, we can almost taste authenticity now. We know the moment you get on that screen, whether you're authentic or not. So even if you don't have a history, we're like, yeah, we get a bad vibe about you. So after that 2024 election, I think that people may finally be like, oh, shit, okay, what's next? Okay, we're done with the MAGA. We're done with the feel the burn. How do we tear this bitch down? I think that's what's gonna come down to.
I agree, and I think that that's really and truly what the establishment knows, is that they have a time expectancy on their ability to play this bipartisan, ping pong of these narratives where it divides people, as you discussed earlier. The same narrative, whether it's ICE or anything else, where you have the left and the right. On the flip side of that coin, at some point in the future, the establishment knows that people will wake up to what is actually driving these narratives, and it's the same party, the same structure that is behind the presidencies of either side. And I think that WikiLeaks,
because it almost feels like that this was planned years in advance. This immigrant, I don't even know if they say Trump is in charge of this right now, right? They say it's because Trump did speak about immigration, but Trump was not the first person to talk about a wall or immigration election. Literally, that's every single election. We really have to remember who's in control of these things.
Exactly. And I think that the persecution of WikiLeaks in part seems to be an attempt to delay the revelation and exposure of that structure, and the way that it persists through different presidencies of
you got to fight when you are the commander-in-chief of your United States military, and you have to fight with your staff about what you want to do. Like, especially when I want to remove people, it's not really a hold up, wait a minute. You said you want less death. We don't know if we can make that happen. We can put more people in, though, if you want. You can do whatever you want to if you want to put more people in. But all they see, their stocks drop. Their contracts drop. Like, their contacting them like, what happened? I thought we had a deal. Same thing happened the first time we tried to pull the CIA out, or when he did pull the CIA out, all of a sudden chemical attacks happen, right? Say they have a fight, and then what happens? Ballistic, or supposedly chemical attacks that were never proven went off, still haven't been proven. We know that the ones before that, thanks to Mad Dog Mattis, he told us there was never any proof of that. So when the president is having to, and I actually believe that he is having to do, I think he did a pop shot at Syria to see who was going to tell him to do it, right? I think that he was like, okay, let me see who's going to BS me and tell me that there were chemical attacks again. And the same people did speak. And then guess what happened right after we saw that? We saw a slow transition of people out of certain offices getting fired and him bringing new people. And he's like, well, now it's your turn to see if you can, if you want to BS me, you're going to be out too. So I would love to see how that's going to turn out. I really hope, like I said, I really, really hope that he does another 180 and it's like, hot sight, gotcha. Assange, welcome to the White House. You're my next VP. Like, that would be awesome.
I think that would be amazing, and I wish that Trump would be a little bit more unpredictable in his choices. But failing that, I'd like to hear in the last 7 minutes that we have to go in this segment, if Julian Assange could listen into this stream, what would you have to tell him to encourage him to keep going and to know that he has the support not only of independent media but the entire public that his work and suffering protects from their government's misuse?
We need you. I mean, I can't really figure out anywhere else to put it, but we need you. Like I said, our careers are in large part successful as they are because of you. We can say one way or another whether Hillary would have won or whether she would have lost, but at the end of the day, it looks like it was because of how outraged people were. And, you know, people were not really happy to vote for either one of them, but people were just literally, I won't even say outraged. We were scared out of our minds to see that woman and their mafia. It would have completed the cycle. It would have completed the circle. Julian, I'm sure, knew this. I know this. You know this. If you understand how deeply rooted these international connections are, you would understand how, like, I was so happy that I was like, I don't even give a shit. Y'all want to make interracial marriage illegal again? That's fine. It can get fixed later. Like, like if it was that point, I didn't even care as a black man how it would be affected. And there were women who didn't care as women how they would be affected. And even people in the LGBTQ community, same thing, because we understood the existential threat that Julian Assange helped prevent.
Exactly. And I actually have a question from our audience to you, Niko. What do you see as the way that WikiLeaks moves forward from here on? What do you see as their, what can they do to continue to operate?
I'm sure their network is already pretty expansive, but like I said, you know how I feel. I feel like they should have a broadcasting station. I truly feel like WikiLeaks needs to get together, probably with maybe RT, just to be, petty, and seriously consider having a broadcasting station of not even, they don't even have to reveal like their major leaked documents, but go revisiting old documents whenever issues come up, because that's like super important. I know HA did that a lot, and it turned out to be a big deal. People still show me old documents about new names that get brought up, talking about some of the issues that kind of get hidden, like that meeting with Pence and the president of Ecuador, and how that entire election transpired, right? And I think that they should have their truth tellers, the ones who have been telling the truth and the ones who have been objective, continuing to write, continuing to broadcast, and telling their truth, having people from both the left and the right go on there and cover issues that are just about the truth and about the facts that are being presented, as far as the hegemon that really is the American empire and the British Empire too, if you want to include them. That would be, in my opinion, because then at that point, when people, like I said, they have faces. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't remember that Julian Assange was attached to WikiLeaks until very recently, when they blasted him. They remember they tried to suppress his name at first. But when you have a face attached to these type of things, it does help out a lot. People become kind of ridiculously loyal. And in my opinion, that should be the case when it comes to WikiLeaks, because of all the sacrifices that they each have to make. And so I think whenever more of their favorite journalists are there and they have skin in the game, people will be much more involved with the success of WikiLeaks and understand its importance. And I think that one day it would be really cool to say, wow, look at what this turned into compared to like having to hide in the dark. And then when these things get released, all of a sudden you are seeing breakthroughs from the same people who were just kind of like lucky enough to even have a career because WikiLeaks was leaking these things. But now we have like a whole broadcasting station to just blast it, and it's getting shared everywhere by your favorite journalists and, the journalists that WikiLeaks bring on, getting written by journalists that WikiLeaks trust and that we all trust as a result. And it's not just coming from the right, it's not just coming from the left, it's coming from truth teller. That's what I would like to see in the future.
Absolutely. I think that's a great thought. And thank you, Niko, for joining us. We just have a couple of minutes. If there's anything else we haven't covered that you'd like to add, I'd love to just give you the opportunity to discuss anything that you don't think we've covered yet.
I would say that if you're watching and you do support Assange, you support WikiLeaks, then reach across ideological lines. If you feel like your favorite journalist is only spouting one narrative until it comes to WikiLeaks, and I don't care if it's even me, then say something about it. You don't have to attack somebody to critique them or talk to them or reason with them. I'm a pretty reasonable person, and most of the people I know that I work with are pretty reasonable people. And say like, look, are we talking? Are we saying what we think? Are you saying what you think your fans want to hear? Or are you being honest? Because that's you just were on Julian Assange's Vigil, saying that the truth is what matters. And so, are you really saying the truth, or what you truly feel is your truth, or are you saying the truth that will bring you the most followers, that will bring you the most success personally? Because that's not what Julian would have done. That's something I grapple with daily. I could be Van Jones right now if I really wanted to, or Sean King if I really wanted to. But my truth is the uncomfortable, inconvenient truth that will probably one day land me in an embassy somewhere. And that's just the way it's got to be, because I don't want your kids or my children to have to deal with the future that it looks like it's coming if we don't start having more truth tellers that are there just for the truth and nothing but that truth.
That is an incredible thought to leave this segment with. Thank you so much, Niko, for joining us. Again, Niko House is an independent journalist in his own right. He's an activist, and he was a major force in the DNC fraud lawsuit. Thank you, Niko, for your time.